Yeah, great. Sweet. So we are live. Andrew, thanks for joining me. And this really ad hoc interview. So thanks for jumping. For anybody else who doesn't know, we just booked this call randomly, wanted to have a chat, and we decided to film some content. So what I just want to do really in like 5 to 10 minutes, YouTube video length style, is talk really briefly and really honestly and transparently about bootstrapping 101, because you're doing it in public right now. 2, how to build a company to exit, because you've already done it, and there's obviously a joke that you're going to exit your own company on your own platform at a certain point. Loving that piece going around at the moment with the Silicon Valley actor. And yeah, what startups and founders should consider along the way. You're doing this solo, and you're already 6-figure plus ARR. So it's like any top tips. So first and foremost, bootstrapping 101. Why not go and raise funding for MicroAcquire, and just a little brief overview as to what MicroAcquire is.
Yeah, so first question, why not go raise funding for MicroAcquire? So right now, the business is just very capital efficient. I think that's one of the most important things when you're bootstrapping a company, is to make sure that you're building a capital efficient business model. So I don't have a huge staff. I don't have a huge development team. I do have a few contractors. We were talking before we recorded, and then I just said, let's go, let's get this on camera. But that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is have a capital efficient business model. I'd say the profitability margin on MicroAcquire right now is about 80-90%. And I'm reinvesting that all back into growth. So tip number 1 is have a capital efficient business model. I mean, just keep your costs as low as possible. I'm not paying myself a salary. I'm fortunate enough to not need a salary at this point, but everything is going back into the business. And then moving to my second piece of advice is understanding when you put, $1,000 into a marketing campaign, understand the ROI on that. Because I see a lot of, early founders just kind of spend a lot on marketing without, and I've made this mistake too personally. So this is me kind of like reminding myself, have proper marketing attribution in place, because then like you're investing $1,000 into, I don't know, Facebook ads or YouTube ads or whatever your customer acquisition model is, and you're getting back to 3,000, 4,000, whatever that amount is, ideally over what you are spending to acquire customers, just so you have, a viable business model essentially.
No, I love that. It's keeping it simple, isn't it? The one thing that we tend to kind of talk about a lot as a brand and in the community is that people certainly nowadays are overcomplicating entrepreneurship, right? So, but it's like the title in the Instagram bio is the thing that counts, and people kind of glaze over the fact that you should just be selling something for more than it costs to make it. And obviously in your case, that's businesses, right? So you're charging the buyers to access the information of companies that are wanting to sell their people that are wanting to sell their companies, and then facilitating those deals through the MicroAcquire platform. But you're doing this all on your own. Obviously, you're fortunate enough, as you said, to have exited a business before and have the ability to do it. But that doesn't stop it being psychologically difficult, right? You're doing it solo. There must be some sleepless nights going on, regardless of the finances. How are you managing that? Is there a team there? Like, what have been your biggest struggles, and what's the biggest learning point for other people listening to this, I guess?
Yeah, quick answer there. Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. So I'm in a few other founder groups, and yeah, this is like my 10th startup. The third one I'll actually tell you about. I have like 20 that died before, in college and high school and all that stuff. But surrounding yourself with people that are on the same journey with you is so important. I have a founder group that I meet with once a month, full of experienced entrepreneurs, and they help point out your blind spots. So I would say, just if you can, just round up some friends. You could throw up a post on Twitter and just say, hey, I'm at 10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, or in whatever your revenue is at, or whatever you're building. And then just try to get a committed group. And you don't even have to talk about you don't have to go that deep. You can just ask one question, like, what's keeping you up at night? And then everybody gives you advice and, helps you along the way. But that's a game changer. But yeah, even for me, I have a journal that I keep as well. That's another thing I recommend. And before I launched MicroAcquire, I have literally a journal entry. I shared it publicly if you dig through my Twitter feed. And I wrote I think MicroAcquire is awesome and it should totally exist, but I don't know if I can make it work, and I'm a little scared to launch it. So, even as like an experienced entrepreneur, like it's completely natural to be, have a little bit of self-doubt or like be nervous about a launch. It's just something that as an entrepreneur, you just need to accept and get comfortable with, and just recognize it's just part of how it goes. It's why there's far fewer entrepreneurs than there are employees, because you don't have that consistent paycheck coming in. You don't have, like, every day is something new that you can be working on. So long story short, surround yourself with people smarter than you, meet with them frequently, and then I also recommend journaling. Nothing, not like The Notebook or anything like that, that love story movie, but once a month I just write in my journal, how are things going, what's going right, what's going wrong, where I'd like to be in 30 days. And it's basically me writing down my goals, reflecting on things I could have done better. And then I look at that and I get a reminder. I use Penzu. It's just quick 5 minutes, just bullet points. And then I look at that and then see how I did. And then what it helps with most is 30 days later, all the things that you were worried about the next month, you're not even worried about anymore. So it starts to put things into perspective. Like what you're worrying about today, like won't matter in 2 months. And then you just start to you get used to that. Like a big client left and then you're super upset about it for a week. But then if you write it down and you read about it a month later, the next time that happens, you just realize it's part of business. You can't win every customer. Some aren't a fit, whatever issue might pop up. So I don't know. That helps with perspective. So those are my
Those are
two.
great tips. I think the one thing that comes out of that, as a continuation of that, is the effect that has on mental health, right? So there's a whole can of worms, and I won't open it because I know we're limited on time, but where reacting and mitigating the emotional effects to negative circumstances. So you lose a big client and you numb that feeling, and over time you keep doing that, and then it can numb feeling just in general. And I find sometimes now, if I have a really great day, that feeling is also numbed because I see it like a wave, right? You numb the low, and actually sometimes you numb the high as well. And the only tip that I've come up with to kind of counter that is celebrate the wins, no matter how small they are, and celebrate them as publicly as possible, which obviously you're learning is great for growth whilst building in public on Twitter.
I can't agree with that more, because the way I'd put that is, if you don't celebrate the wins, it makes the losses so much harder.
Yeah,
Because if you're winning and you're not really like patting yourself on the back, which you should, like if you get a good, you know, revenue bump, or a new customer comes in, or you release a new feature, um, you know, I'm a big fan of sharing and building in public. It just gives people a reason to root for you, and that motivates me and also inspires other entrepreneurs. So, not only does it inspire you, but you potentially have the opportunity to inspire others. So definitely agree with celebrate even the smallest, tiniest wins. Like even if you fix a bug, like just, you know, shout that out. Like, 'cause
100%.
yeah, because when you do a startup, things go wrong all the time. That's just how it goes, no matter what.
100%. Although, like, celebrating in the right way is obviously really important, because if I keep ordering McDonald's every time I get something right, I'm going to get real fat, certainly while the lockdown in the UK continues. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't,
probably
I
need to
don't
get
I
that.
don't recommend getting McDonald's every time. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like McDonald's. So shout out to McDonald's, but
We'll
yeah,
get some
definitely take
goodies
care of yourself and celebrate in healthy ways.
in
I mean,
healthy
also
ways.
don't go like binge drinking or something like that. Every other
Advocating good
day or
sleep.
something like that.
Treat yourself to a really early night. That's a good win. So on the final question, just because it's nice to get something a little bit more interesting than other people might otherwise hear, right? It's like you jump onto these calls and everybody asks the same questions all the time, and the brand that I run is called Dffrnt, so it would be weird if I didn't ask you a fairly different question. I just want to know, like, what the craziest day in your business history has been so far. If there's a little story that you have to tell that you don't usually tell other people, that actually might contain a little lesson that you sometimes don't really think about, and sometimes actually that's the worst day in your business so far. So just curious if you're open to sharing that.
The worst day, I'd have to think. The first one that comes to mind is, so when I was running business apps, we flew out to Florida to meet with a company to potentially acquire business apps. And one of our engineers merged two columns in our database, basically brought down our entire like company for like 8 hours. And
Wow.
I remember just like pacing around, like, we're in Florida. We're about to meet with the executive team in like 2 hours. We had to pull a huge backup. This was like a decade ago, so the details are a little foggy, but um, that was stressful for sure. That that comes to mind. Other, bad times. Just so many mistakes in terms of, hiring the wrong person at the wrong time. Building features that I shouldn't have. Those don't necessarily lead to like a bad day, but 2 months, 3 months, 4 months later after you built them, you're like, this is not keeping me focused on my goal. But I have so many stories like that. But that one comes to mind because that one was like, we were all stressed out. We were away from the office, so we're communicating with everybody back in California, saying like, what can we do to help? And we're on the phone with, we were using Rackspace at the time because this was before AWS was the standard. So that was stressful. And it
I
wasn't fun.
always like asking that question because it's always funny to me to see the correlation between the worst day and the business that actually did well. Because out of the 20 companies that you said that you started, I'm fairly sure that's the one you exited, right? So the worst day that you've had in business was the one was actually in the business that you ended up selling. So there's an interesting correlation there to the stories that you remember and the things that went well in the end. So I think the moral of the story for the community watching this is no matter how tough the week is going, the day is going, or the month is going, it's like, keep plugging at it and something's going to stick, especially if you listen to the advice of people like yourself. So thanks for sharing that stuff. I really appreciate it. And I guess what I'm going to do with this content is throw it up live as soon as possible for the community and the public to watch, if you're okay with that. But also obviously just to make people aware that if they are looking to sell their company, they can do it through MicroAcquire, but there might be some criteria. So I don't know if you want to lay that down now, just so that everybody knows what that is.
Yeah, definitely. So MicroAcquire, 0 fees, 0 commissions, 0 exclusivity. You can get live in about an hour. The only thing we look for is mainly SaaS. So if you have a good SaaS business, definitely feel free to reach out.
Sweet. I guess real quick final question on that then is, how does someone value a company, right? Like multiples. Is there a real quick answer that you can give to this? Is there a calculator on the website, for example, that can help you do this? I'm not sure.
I'm actually working on a valuation tool now that's going to pull in real market data based on deals that have closed within MicroWire. But I mean, it's like asking the price of a car. What's the growth rate? What's the churn rate? How long has the company been in business? How profitable is it? Typical rule of thumb. I see a lot of companies selling for 3 to 6 times EBITDA. Sometimes, if growing and above, say, 1 million in revenue, you can get multiples on ARR. But it all depends. It's a very complex question, but rule of thumb, 3 to 6 EBITDA. There's buyers looking to acquire companies in that range all day. And then on the strategic side, which would be a larger company, typically I see multiples in 1 to 3 times annual recurring revenue. And then
Right.
once you start to get higher up in ARR and you're growing, all those multiples increase. So it just
Sweet.
depends.
Well, yeah, I guess that's really good to know. It gives our community an idea of, and the wider community an idea of what sort of numbers they should be hitting, and just why profits are so important, right? You want to be building something you can't sell at the end of the day. But yeah, thanks for joining. I really appreciate this. And if they want to find you, where can they find you? You're active on Twitter anyway. I'm sure they've probably seen you before now. But how can they reach you?
Yeah, just a Gazdecki on Twitter, if you can spell that. Throw me a follow or add me on LinkedIn, or just shoot me an email, andrew@microacquire.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, we'll catch you again soon.
All right, man.